3 Michelin-starred chefs. 17 five-star restaurants across Seoul. A personal culinary team flown in from Paris. And still, nothing. Jang Murayang hadn't truly tasted food in 23 years. Not since she left. But tonight, a single whiff of something impossible, something that smelled exactly like home, made him slam his brakes on a rain-soaked Seoul street. The aroma came from a tiny roadside eatery. No fancy signage. No celebrity endorsements. Just a woman with deep brown skin, stirring a wok with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. He didn't know that this moment would unravel everything, the lies, the betrayals, the truth his stepmother had buried for over 2 decades. He didn't know that this woman held the key to his past, and possibly, his future. What he did know. That fried rice smelled like the only person who had ever truly loved him. Before we dive into this incredible story of secrets, betrayal, and a love that crosses continents, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. This story has more twists than a K-drama marathon, and you're going to want to be here for every single one. Now, let's get into it. The black Maybach cut through Seoul's evening traffic like a blade through silk. Inside, Jang Murayang stared at the rain streaking down the tinted windows, his jaw tight, his eyes hollow. Another dinner. Another disappointment. His driver, Park Jae-hyun, had been with him for 15 years. Long enough to know that the untouched containers of food in the back seat meant another chef had failed the impossible test. "Should I take you home, sir?" Jae-hyun asked carefully. "No." Murayang's voice was flat. "Just drive." At 45 years old, Jang Murayang was one of the most powerful men in South Korea. His legitimate businesses, real estate, technology, pharmaceuticals, generated billions. His illegitimate ones generated even more. The Jang organization controlled everything that moved through Seoul's underground, and Murayang sat at the very top of that empire. But power couldn't fix his tongue. Money couldn't rebuild his appetite. And all the fear he inspired couldn't bring back what he'd lost. The rain intensified. Jae-hyun took a wrong turn, a detour to avoid the flooding near Gangnam. They ended up on a narrow street near Itaewon, an area known for its international residents and eclectic food scene. That's when Murayang smelled it. He sat up straight so fast that Jae-hyun nearly swerved. "Stop the car. Sir. Stop the car now." The Maybach pulled over beside a small outdoor eatery, barely more than a covered cooking station with a few plastic tables and chairs. Steam rose from multiple pots and pans, mixing with the rain in a dance of fire and water. And standing at the center of it all was a woman. She was African, that much was immediately clear. Her skin was the color of rich dark cocoa, smooth and glowing despite the heat from her cooking station. She wore a simple apron over a colorful blouse, her hair wrapped in a vibrant yellow head tie. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, tossing ingredients in a massive wok while simultaneously monitoring 3 other dishes. But none of that mattered to Murayang. What mattered was the smell. Garlic and ginger. Palm oil and curry. Rice toasted to perfection. And underneath it all, something else, something he couldn't name but recognized in the deepest part of his soul. It smelled like Saturday mornings in the Jang kitchen. Like warmth. Like safety. Like the only years of his childhood worth remembering. It smelled like her. Before he knew what he was doing, Murayang was out of the car, stepping into the rain, walking toward the eatery like a man possessed. Jae-hyun scrambled after him. "Sir. Your umbrella." Murayang ignored him. The woman looked up as he approached. Her eyes met his, dark, intelligent, assessing. She didn't seem impressed by his designer suit or his obvious wealth. If anything, she seemed mildly annoyed that he was dripping water onto her clean serving area. "You're going to catch cold standing there like that," she said. Her Korean was accented but fluent. Sit down or keep walking. I don't have time for window shoppers. Despite everything, Murayang felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Nobody spoke to him like that. Nobody had spoken to him like that in years. Give me your best dish, he said. She raised an eyebrow. My best dish costs 60,000 won. You sure about that? I'm sure. You haven't even looked at the menu. I don't need to. She studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition. No, not recognition. Something else. Like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't know she was working on. Fine, she said finally. Sit. Murayang sat at a plastic table like he hadn't sat at a plastic table in decades. Jae-hyun stood nearby, hand near his concealed weapon, scanning the area for threats. The few other customers, a young couple, an elderly man, 2 college students, seemed utterly unaware that the most dangerous man in Seoul was now sharing their space. The woman returned to her cooking station. Murayang watched her work, the fluid motion of her hands, the precise timing, the way she seemed to dance between tasks without ever missing a beat. 10 minutes later, she placed a plate in front of him. It was fried rice. Simple, unpretentious fried rice. But the aroma that rose from it hit Murayang like a physical blow. Murayangji, come eat. I made your favorite. The voice echoed from somewhere deep in his memory. A woman with warm brown skin and warmer brown eyes. Soft hands that had bandaged his scraped knees and dried his tears. The only mother he'd ever known. Mama Adiz. His hands shook as he picked up the spoon. The first bite hit his tongue, and he went completely still. The flavors exploded, familiar and foreign at once. The same soul, the same essence, but with something new woven through it. It was like hearing a song he'd loved as a child, performed by a new artist who understood exactly what made it special. For the first time in 23 years, Jang Murayang tasted food. Really tasted it. He ate everything. Scraped the plate clean. And then looked up at the woman who had achieved what every 5-star chef in Asia had failed to do. What's your name? He asked. She was counting money, not looking at him. Why does it matter? It matters. Something in his voice made her pause. She looked at him again, really looked, and whatever she saw made her expression soften slightly. Chitachi, she said. Chitachi Okafor. Murayang felt the world shift beneath him. Okafor. Okafor. Nigerian? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Igbo, specifically. Is that a problem? No. He stood, pulled out his wallet, and placed 500,000 won on the table, more than 8 times what he owed. No problem at all. He walked back to the car, leaving Chitachi staring at the money with wide eyes. In the Maybach, Jae-hyun watched his boss through the rearview mirror. In 15 years, he had never seen Jang Murayang look like this. Sir. Where to? Murayang didn't answer for a long moment. When he did, his voice was strange. Thick. Almost broken. I need you to find out everything about that woman. Her family. Her history. How she ended up in Korea. Everything, Jae-hyun. Yes, sir. May I ask why? Murayang leaned back against the leather seat and closed his eyes. When he spoke, it was barely above a whisper. Because I think she might be connected to the only person who ever truly loved me. And I need to know why. Murayang came back the next night. And the night after that. And every night for the following 2 weeks. At first, Chitachi was suspicious. A man like him, expensive suits, luxury cars, bodyguards lurking in the shadows, didn't belong at her little roadside eatery. Men like him were trouble. She'd learned that lesson well enough back home in Nigeria, and she'd learned it again when she'd first arrived in Korea, young and naive and thinking the world would be kind to her dreams. But he kept coming. He ordered different dishes each time: jollof rice, egusi soup with pounded yam, suya spiced grilled meat, her signature fried rice with a West African twist. He ate everything she put in front of him with an intensity that was almost religious. And he tipped like he was trying to buy the entire eatery. "You're scaring away my regular customers," she told him one night, gesturing to where Jae-hyun stood guard near the cooking station. "Nobody wants to eat their pepper soup with a man who looks like he could kill them watching their every bite." Murayang almost smiled. "Almost. He makes you uncomfortable." "I didn't say that. I said he makes them uncomfortable." "Me?" She flipped a piece of meat on her grill with expert precision. "I've survived worse than scary-looking bodyguards." "What have you survived, Chitachi Okafor?" She looked at him then, a long, measuring look. "Why do you keep coming here? You're clearly wealthy. You could eat anywhere in Seoul. Anywhere in the world, probably. Why a roadside eatery run by an Igbo woman?" Murayang considered the question. Considered lying. Decided against it. "Your food," he said slowly, "reminds me of someone I lost. Someone who was taken from me when I was young. The only person who ever made me feel safe." Chitachi's expression shifted. The wariness remained, but something else crept in. Understanding, perhaps. Recognition of shared pain. "Who was she?" Chitachi asked quietly. "My nanny. An Igbo woman, like you. Her name was Adiz. Adiz Okafor." The pot Chitachi was stirring clattered against the burner. Her face went through a rapid succession of emotions: shock, disbelief, and something that looked dangerously like hope. "What did you say?" Murayang watched her carefully. "Adiz Okafor. She worked for my family for 6 years. She raised me. She was the only mother I ever knew." His voice hardened. "And then my stepmother accused her of stealing jewelry and had her thrown out of our home in the middle of the night. I was 12 years old. I never saw her again." Chitachi's hands were shaking. She gripped the edge of her cooking station like she might fall without its support. "Adiz Okafor," she whispered. "That's my mother's name." The noise of the street, cars, music, chatter, seemed to fade into nothing. The world narrowed to just the two of them, standing on either side of a cooking station, standing on either side of a truth that had been buried for over 2 decades. "Your mother," Murayang repeated. Chitachi's voice broke. She took a breath, steadied herself. "She worked in Korea when she was young. For a wealthy family. She never talked about it much. Just said it was the best and worst time of her life. She said there was a little boy who she loved like her own son, but she had to leave him. She said she never forgave herself for that." Murayang stood so abruptly that his chair fell backward. Jae-hyun was at his side instantly, hand on his weapon. "She talked about me?" Chitachi nodded, tears now streaming down her face. "All the time. She said you were the sweetest child. That you used to cry when she left the room. That you called her Mama Adiz," Murayang finished. His voice was wrecked. Completely wrecked. "I called her Mama Adiz." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Chitachi came around the cooking station, stopping just a few feet from him. Up close, he could see the resemblance now. The same warm brown eyes. The same kind set of the mouth. The same quiet strength that had been his anchor in a sea of cruelty. "She never stole anything," Chitachi said fiercely. "My mother was the most honest person I've ever known. She died 4 years ago, still heartbroken about what happened in Korea. She said the worst part wasn't the accusation. The worst part was leaving you behind with those people." Murayang felt something crack open in his chest. A door he'd sealed shut at 12 years old, the night he'd watched Mama Adiz be dragged from their home by security, crying and pleading and calling his name while his stepmother smiled triumphantly in the background. "I know she didn't steal," he said. "I've always known. I was just a child. I couldn't stop them." "Then why did they do it?" "Because she loved me. And my stepmother couldn't stand it." Jae-hyun's report arrived 3 days later. Murayang read it in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched at his elbow. The words on the pages confirmed everything Chitachi had told him, and revealed so much more. Adiz Okafor had returned to Nigeria in disgrace, accused of theft and deported without any legal recourse. She'd been pregnant at the time, 3 months along with a child whose father she never revealed. She'd given birth to Chitachi 7 months after leaving Korea and raised her alone, working multiple jobs to ensure her daughter had the education and opportunities she herself had been denied. Chitachi had grown up loving food, learning to cook at her mother's side. She'd dreamed of becoming a chef, of opening her own restaurant. When she was 28, she'd scraped together enough money to come to Korea, the country her mother had never stopped talking about, despite everything, and try her luck. But Korea hadn't been kind to her. The culinary industry was brutal, especially for black African women. She'd been rejected from every restaurant she applied to, told she was too foreign, too different, too other to understand Korean cuisine. So she'd done what generations of Igbo women before her had done, she'd adapted. She'd started her roadside eatery, fusing Nigerian and Korean flavors, building a loyal customer base one dish at a time. She'd been operating for 4 years now, barely surviving but refusing to give up. Murayang closed the file and stared at the wall. 23 years. Mama Adiz had been alive for most of that time, and he'd never known. He'd never looked for her. He'd told himself it was because there was nothing he could do, but the truth was uglier. He'd been a coward. He'd been afraid to confront the past, to dig into the truth, to face what his family had really done. His stepmother, Choi Yoonji, had stolen more than jewelry. She'd stolen his childhood. His family. His ability to trust anyone ever again. And she was still alive. Still living in the Jang family mansion, still spending Jang money, still pretending to be the grieving widow of his father, who had died 10 years ago. Murayang picked up his phone and dialed. "Jae-hyun. I need you to look into something else." "Of course, sir." "The night Adiz Okafor was accused of theft, I want every detail. Security footage, staff reports, anything that still exists. And I want a complete record of my stepmother's finances from that time period. Every purchase, every transaction, every gift she gave or received. That information may be difficult to obtain, sir. It was over 20 years ago. I don't care how difficult it is. Find it." "Yes, sir." Murayang hung up and drained his whiskey in one long swallow. The burn felt appropriate. It felt like justice finally waking up after a very long sleep. "Oh my goodness, did you see that coming? The woman at the roadside eatery is the daughter of Murayang's beloved nanny. But wait, we're not even close to the biggest twist yet. What really happened the night Mama Adiz was accused of theft? And what is Murayang's stepmother hiding?" Before we find out, take a quick second to hit that like button if you're enjoying this story. Your engagement helps us bring you more content like this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Now, let's get back to the story, because things are about to get intense. 2 weeks later, Murayang sat across from Chitachi at her eatery. It was late, past midnight, and she'd closed up for the night, but she'd stayed when he asked. They'd been doing this more often lately, these late-night conversations. Talking about her mother. Talking about his childhood. Filling in the gaps that 23 years of separation had created. "She used to make me this soup when I was sick," Murayang said, staring into his bowl of egusi. "I could never figure out what was in it. I just knew it made everything better." Chitachi smiled. "She probably added something special just for you." She was like that. She believed food was medicine, love, and magic all wrapped together. She was right. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Chitachi asked the question that had been hovering between them for days. Have you found anything? About that night? Murayang's expression darkened. I found everything. He pulled out a file, thick, heavy, damning, and placed it on the table between them. My stepmother orchestrated the entire thing. She paid 2 servants to plant jewelry in your mother's room. She bribed the security team to make sure there was no investigation. She even had your mother's visa revoked before she could defend herself. Chitachi's hands curled into fists. Why? What did my mother ever do to her? She loved me. Murayang's voice was bitter. That was her crime. My father had remarried after my biological mother died in childbirth. Yunji was supposed to be my new mother, but she only cared about one thing, ensuring her own future children would inherit everything. She couldn't stand that my father's affection was divided. And she especially couldn't stand that I preferred Mama Adi's care to hers. So she framed an innocent woman. Yes. Chitachi's eyes flashed with an anger that matched his own. And she got away with it. Not for long. Murayang leaned forward. But there's more. Something I wasn't expecting. He pulled out another document from the file. This one was older, yellowed, written in a mix of Korean and English. Your mother was pregnant when she left Korea. Chitachi froze. I know. She never told anyone who my father was. I always assumed it was someone back home, before she left for Korea. That's what everyone assumed. Murayang's gaze met hers. But the timing doesn't work. She'd been in Korea for 6 years. She hadn't been back to Nigeria in all that time. The only people she interacted with were members of my household. The implication hung in the air like a blade. You're saying. Chitachi couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying my father visited your mother's quarters regularly. I'm saying the servants who were still loyal to him noticed, even if they said nothing at the time. I'm saying there's a very real possibility that his affair with your mother is the real reason my stepmother wanted her gone. Chitachi stood up so fast her chair crashed to the ground. No. No, that would mean. That would mean we might be siblings. The word hung between them, transforming everything. Every conversation. Every shared meal. Every moment of connection they'd been building for weeks. We need proof, Chitachi said, her voice shaking. DNA testing. Something definitive. I know. And I want that too. Murayang stood, moved toward her slowly, carefully. But I need you to understand something, Chitachi. Whether or not we share blood, you are Mama Adi's daughter. That makes you family. That makes you mine to protect. And I will burn down everything my stepmother has built to get justice for your mother. Chitachi looked at him, this powerful, dangerous man who ate at her roadside eatery like it was a Michelin-starred restaurant. This man who had spent weeks listening to stories about a mother he'd lost, grieving alongside her for a woman she'd lost. And if we are siblings, she asked quietly. What then? Then I gain the only family member I've ever actually wanted. Murayang didn't tell Chitachi about the DNA test he'd arranged. He needed to know the truth before he could act, and he needed her protected from the fallout that was coming. The results arrived on a Tuesday morning. He read them 3 times, then laughed, a harsh, broken sound that echoed through his empty study. They shared a father. Chitachi was his half-sister. The old man had been having an affair with Mama Adi's the entire time, and Yunji had known. That's why she'd orchestrated the removal so viciously. Not just jealousy. Fear. Fear that her position as primary wife was threatened. Fear that another child would divide the inheritance. She'd succeeded in removing Adi's. But she'd failed to eliminate the child. Murayang made a phone call. Jae-hyun. Arrange a family dinner at the main house. Tomorrow evening. Formal invitation to my stepmother. Tell her I wish to discuss the future of the organization. She won't come willingly, sir. You know she's been afraid of you since your father died. That's why you're going to make it clear that refusal isn't an option. She'll come. Yes, sir. The next call was to Chitachi. I need you to come to dinner tomorrow night. At my family home. Silence on the other end. Then, why? Because it's time for the truth to come out. All of it. Murayang, what aren't you telling me? He closed his eyes. I got the DNA results. He heard her sharp intake of breath. And we're siblings, Chitachi. We share a father. You're a Jang. The silence that followed was so long he thought she might have hung up. Then, finally, a sob. Just one, quickly controlled. All this time, she whispered. My mother never told me. She went to her grave keeping that secret. She was protecting you. The same way she protected me. From what? From them. From the family. From the truth that would have painted a target on your back. Murayang's grip on the phone tightened. But it's time to stop running. It's time to stop hiding. You're my sister, Chitachi. You deserve to claim what's yours. I don't want their money. I know. Neither do I, not really. But I want Yoonji to pay for what she did. And I want you to be standing there when she realizes that everything she schemed for was for nothing. The Jang family mansion was exactly as Chitachi had imagined from her mother's stories, cold, beautiful, and utterly devoid of warmth. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Art that cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. It was a mausoleum dressed up as a home. She dressed carefully for the occasion. Her best outfit, a flowing Ankara dress in vibrant oranges and yellows, was her mother's favorite design. She wore it like armor. Murayang was waiting for her in the foyer. In his black suit, he looked every inch the Mafia boss, powerful, dangerous, controlled. But when he saw her, his expression softened. You look like her, he said quietly. You have her eyes. You have her heart, Chitachi replied. She would be proud of who you became. I'm a criminal. You're a survivor. There's a difference. Before he could respond, the sharp click of heels announced another arrival. Chitachi turned to see a woman in her late 60s descending the main staircase. Choi Yoonji was still beautiful, in the way that expensive maintenance could preserve beauty, every line smoothed, every hair in place, every jewel designed to impress. But her eyes were cold. They landed on Chitachi, assessed her, dismissed her. Murayang, she said, her tone honeyed with false sweetness. I didn't realize we were entertaining guests. She's not a guest, Yoonji. She's family. Something flickered in those cold eyes. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I'm sure you do. Murayang gestured toward the dining room. Shall we eat? I've had the chef prepare a special menu. All traditional Nigerian dishes. In honor of the woman who should have been sitting at this table 23 years ago. Yoonji's mask cracked, just slightly. This is absurd. I won't. Sit down. The command was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute power. Whatever Yoonji saw in Murayang's face made her go pale. She sat. The dinner was torture. Course after course of food that Chitachi had helped design, dishes that represented her mother's love, her heritage, her life. Yoonji picked at each plate like it was poison. Finally, between the fourth and fifth course, Murayang spoke. I know what you did. Yoonji's fork paused. I've done many things. You'll have to be specific. I know you framed Adiz Okafor. I know you bribed the servants and the security team. I know you had her visa revoked and her deportation arranged. I know you did it because my father was in love with her, and because she was carrying his child. The room went silent. Even the servants who had been quietly attending seemed to freeze. Yoonji's composure shattered. That's ridiculous. Your father would never. I have proof. Documents. Witness statements. DNA evidence. Murayang nodded toward Chitachi. Allow me to introduce you to Chitachi Okafor. My half-sister. Daughter of Adiz Okafor and Jang Songwoo. Your husband's other child. The scream that tore from Yoonji's throat was inhuman. She lunged across the table, hands reaching for Chitachi like claws. You're just like her. Coming to steal what's mine. I won't allow it. I won't. Jae-hyun appeared from nowhere, restraining her with practiced efficiency. She struggled against his hold, her perfectly maintained facade crumbling into something ugly and desperate. It's over, Yoonji, Murayang said. I'm releasing the evidence to the press tomorrow. Everyone will know what you did. Everyone will know that you built your comfortable life on the destruction of an innocent woman. And when the board sees how you've been skimming from the family accounts, oh yes, I know about that too, they'll vote to remove you from any position of influence. You can't do this. I was your mother. I raised you. No. Murayang's voice was ice. Adiz raised me. You just stood in her shadow and poisoned everything she touched. He nodded to Jae-hyun. Take her to her room. She can pack her things in the morning. The lawyers will explain the terms of her departure. As Yoonji was dragged away, still screaming threats and curses, Chitachi sat very still. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. But beneath the shock and the chaos, she felt something else. Peace. Her mother's name would be cleared. The truth would be known. After 23 years, justice had finally arrived. Murayang sat down beside her, suddenly looking exhausted. The mask of the Mafia boss slipped away, leaving just a man who had spent his entire life searching for something he'd lost. Are you okay? He asked. Chitachi took his hand. I'm better than okay. For the first time in my life, I know who I really am. The scandal rocked Seoul's elite society. The revelation that the late Jang Songwoo had fathered a secret child with the family's Igbo nanny, and that his widow had orchestrated a decades-long cover-up, dominated headlines for weeks. Yoonji was stripped of everything. The board voted unanimously to remove her from any association with Jang businesses. The evidence of her embezzlement resulted in criminal charges. She fled to Switzerland, where she lived in diminished circumstances, her social standing destroyed. Chitachi refused to take the Jang name formally, but she accepted her position as Murayang's recognized sister. She also accepted the seed funding he offered, a fraction of her rightful inheritance, to finally open the restaurant her mother had always dreamed of. Adiz's table opened 6 months later. It was everything Chitachi had imagined, a fusion restaurant celebrating Nigerian and Korean cuisines, staffed by diverse chefs from around the world, serving food that told the story of migration, adaptation, and love. Murayang was there for the opening night. So was Jae-hyun, actually smiling for once. And so was someone else, a woman Murayang had been quietly seeing for the past few months. A woman Chitachi had introduced him to. A woman who loved him not for his power or his money, but for the wounded boy he'd once been and the man he was trying to become. But that's a story for another time. As the guests filled the restaurant, as the kitchen hummed with activity, as the aroma of Mama Adiz's recipes filled the air, Chitachi stood at the window and watched the city lights of Seoul. She thought about her mother, who had loved a man she could never claim and raised a child she could never fully explain. She thought about the sacrifice and the silence and the years of wondering why. She thought about the little boy who had called her mother, Mama, and had spent 23 years hungry for something no chef could provide. And she thought about how the universe had a way of bringing things full circle, how a roadside eatery and a whiff of familiar spices had reunited a family that had been torn apart. The door opened behind her. Murayang appeared at her side, champagne glass in hand. "Mom would have loved this," he said. Chitachi smiled. "She's here. Can't you feel it?" He could. In the warmth of the kitchen. In the laughter of the guests. In the food that carried love in every bite. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I can." They stood together, brother and sister, finally united, and watched the night unfold. Adi's table had become one of the most successful restaurants in Seoul. Critics raved about the unique fusion cuisine. Food bloggers flocked from around the world to taste Chitachi's creations. The reservation list stretched months into the future. But Chitachi still made time for her original roadside eatery. Once a week, she returned to the little cooking station where everything had changed. She served her regulars, the young couple who had become engaged at one of her tables, the elderly man who came for the jollof rice that reminded him of his late wife's cooking, the college students who could finally afford more than the cheapest dishes. And every week, without fail, a black Maybach would pull up. Jang Murayang would step out, take his usual seat at the plastic table, and order whatever Chitachi felt like making. He never brought bodyguards anymore. He didn't need to. In this little corner of Seoul, he wasn't a mafia boss. He was just a man, eating food that tasted like home. One evening, as the sun set and the eatery began to quiet, Murayang looked across the table at his sister. "I've been thinking," he said. "That's dangerous," Chitachi teased. He ignored her. "The organization. The underground business. I want out." Chitachi's eyebrows rose. "That's not exactly a job you can just resign from." "No. But I can transition it. Move into purely legitimate operations. Use the resources to do something good instead of what we've been doing." "And the other families? The competitors? They'll just let you walk away." Murayang smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd only started allowing himself since reconnecting with her. "Let's just say I've been building leverage for exactly this moment. By the time I'm done, no one will be in a position to stop me." Chitachi studied her brother. The cold, hollow man she'd first seen step out of that Maybach felt like a different person now. There was warmth in him. Hope. A future that wasn't just survival and power. "She would be so proud of you," Chitachi said softly. "Mom. She would be proud of both of us." Murayang reached across the table and took her hand. "Chitachi, I spent 23 years thinking I was alone. Thinking that I had no family worth claiming. And then you came into my life, or I came into yours, I suppose, and everything changed. A plate of fried rice changed your life." "No." He shook his head. "Love changed my life. Her love, all those years ago. Your love, now." Food was just the language it spoke. Chitachi squeezed his hand. "That's the most poetic thing I've ever heard you say. Don't get used to it." They laughed together, brother and sister, as the Seoul evening wrapped around them like a blessing. Somewhere, Chitachi liked to think, Mama Adiz was watching. And she was finally at peace. Oh my God, what a journey that was. From a roadside eatery to a family reunion, 23 years in the making. The twists, the emotions, the justice, I am still processing all of it. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves a good drama. Your support means everything to us. And if you're not subscribed yet, why are you playing with yourself? Hit that subscribe button and join our family. We've got so many more incredible stories coming your way, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single one. Drop a comment below telling us, what was your favorite part of this story? Was it the moment Murayang first tasted Chitachi's food? The revelation that they were siblings? Or the final confrontation with Yoonji? We read every single comment, and we love hearing from you. Until next time, take care of yourselves, love each other, and remember, sometimes the most important things in life come from the most unexpected places. See you in the next one.